Hello, and welcome to episode 48 of Sir Astro's Star Wars painting series. In this episode, we're going to paint Emperor Palpatine from Fantasy Flight Games' Star Wars Imperial Assault. With his plain black robes and pallid skin tone, the Emperor is quite a straightforward miniature to paint, and as you can see, I've chosen to have some fun with an optional false lightning effect. Let's take a look at the painting stages. I've chosen to give the figure a simple prime in plain black. We'll then apply the base colours, including the eyes, and I'll be providing some shade for the skin. Next we'll highlight the figure and provide a few final details for the face. For the finishing touches, I've chosen to add an optional false lightning effect, made quite simply with some steel wool. Let's begin with the base colours. I'm going to begin by painting the skin using a roughly 2:1 mix of Bugman's Glow and Mechanicus Standard Grey. I'm adding the grey, of course, to desaturate the colour, creating a more pallid flesh tone. A second layer of this may be needed as we're painting over a solid black prime. I'm now going to paint the eyes with some Averland Sunset, which I'm lightening with a little white. I've chosen to make them a little brighter by increasing the amount of white. Next I'm going to use some black to dot in some pupils. And I'm now making some corrections with the base skin tone. I'm now going to shade the skin with a 3:1 mix of Reikland Fleshshade and Drakenhof Nightshade, along with a little medium. Whilst I'm happy for this to tone down the eyes, I don't want to let it pool too heavily. I've chosen to add a second layer selectively to darken the inside of the mouth as well as the edges of the face as they recede into the hood. Finally, I'm now painting the robes with a roughly 2:1 mix of black and dark sea blue. The blue will barely register at this stage, but will become subtly apparent when we lighten this mix with white in a moment. We're now ready to add the highlights. I'm now going to highlight the robes, and I'm first transferring some of the base colour in case it's needed later to perform corrections. We can create our highlight tone by simply adding increasing quantities of white to the base colour in several stages. I'll be doing some feathering with a damp brush along the way, especially for the larger areas of fabric on the back. As well as some general overhead lighting, I'm also strengthening the highlights at the front to create the suggestion of light being given off from the Force lightning. You may want to do the same to add interest, even if you're not going to create the actual lightning itself. Deciding how far to take the highlights is a question of judgment, but this is my brightest tone. With the robes complete, I'm now going to highlight the skin. So I'm returning to the original Bugman's Glow and Mechanicus standard grey base tone, which I'll then lighten with the addition of some white and some Nurgling Green. I'm starting with the original base tone and I'm brightening up all but the deepest recesses. And I'm now lightening the colour with the addition of roughly equal amounts of white and Nurgling Green in a few stages. The Emperor isn't known for having especially smooth skin, so we can afford to be a little rough in our application. Here I'm using the off-black colour we mixed earlier to further darken the inside of the mouth. And I'm now mixing my brightest highlight tone. I'm now sketching in some teeth, which is a small but expressive detail. To finish the face off, I'm going to brush some neat Carroburg Crimson just below the eyes. I'm now applying a second layer to strengthen the effect. To finish the highlights off, I'm going to add a few pure white highlights to the clasp to create a shiny metallic effect. We're now ready to add some finishing touches. I'm now going to create the optional lightning effect using some fine steel wool, which should be widely available in most hardware or DIY stores. This can be easily torn up into appropriately sized pieces, and I'd suggest creating several variations to give you more options once they've been painted. The wool can be compressed, fanned out and trimmed with scissors to create a look you're happy with. We can then prime the wool white either with a spray can or an airbrush. Although this could be left plain white, I've chosen to mix a little electric blue into some dead white, which I'm using to create a pale blue tint. If you don't have an airbrush, then you could try dipping the wool in some thinned Drakenhof Nightshade or Guilliman Blue. Just be sure to dry it with a hairdryer to prevent any rust from forming. For some more subtle variation, I'm now mixing in a little red to create a more lilac tint. This can be applied somewhat unevenly to create some gentle shifts in tone. Before gluing on my chosen piece, I'm going to add a gentle blue cast to the Emperor to match the bluish tone of the lightning. For that, I'm thinning some Guilliman Blue with around 10 parts of Lamian medium, and I'm brushing this over the lit areas. I'm applying this in a couple of layers until I have a level of saturation that I'm happy with. This is also as good a time as any to paint the base, and I'm using the dark robe colours to create some gentle frontal lighting. I'm now making a few final adjustments to my chosen piece of lightning to create the impression of the effect emanating from the individual hands. This can now be glued in place with a little super glue. And this completes Emperor Palpatine. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you have enjoyed the video. Don't forget that you can find full details of the brushes and paints used in the video description, along with links to where I can be found on social media, as well as the album Starborn, which features the music written for the series. My very special thanks as always go to my dear patrons for so generously funding this series. If you'd like to help fund future content, then feel free to click the Patreon link and pledge what you can. Join me again soon as we continue painting miniatures from Star Wars Imperial Assault. Happy painting!